In K-pop, there's Lazy Jenny and there's the whole New Jeans drama. I feel like second gen drama is rarely talked about, and sometimes it is the juiciest. Now, this all begins with Core Contents Media. And if you're super into K-pop lore, you may recognize that name because that record label was infamously involved in a huge bullying scandal in the early 2010s. But that's besides the point. In 2010, Core Contents Media formed one of K-pop's few co-ed groups, Coed School. Coed School consisted of 4 female members, and this is when you have to forgive me for the bad pronunciation. 4 female members were Chanmi, Haewon, Sumi, and Hyoyeon, and there were 6 male members: Taewoon, Sungmin, Jungwoo, Kwanghang, and Nuri. Now, almost immediately, Coed School attracted a fan base because at the time, co-ed groups were very unpopular. I mean, to this day, you very rarely see a co-ed group. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is All Day Project, and they're just a mess for their own reasons. So far it seems like co-ed groups aren't a good idea. Before we continue, I want to apologize. I call Coed School Coed Group multiple times. I don't know why I kept on saying Coed Group. Coed Group immediately attracted a fan base, and their first mini-album, Something That Is Cheerful and Fresh, sold a shocking 40,000 copies, which is an impressive number for a rookie group. Coed Group began to rise in popularity, but the problem with popularity is it normally brings controversies. And by the end of 2010, rumors began to swirl. DC Inside and fan cafe threads started spreading talk of possible couples among some of the members. The most popular ship was between Chanmi and Yoosung because of their chemistry and playful banter during interviews. And Kwanghang and Sumi were also shipped together because of their affectionate moments on camera. Looking back, I don't really understand why people felt the need to ship them. A man and a woman can be friends, and there's nothing wrong with that. And they can also be affectionate. So some of it does feel like people were just picking for drama, like they just wanted to start a scandal. Things would get worse before they would ever get better, because in early 2011, several international K-pop blogs and Korean fan sites began calling Coed School too flirty for a rookie idol group. Because of these rumors, fans began to express discomfort. They said that Coed School's dynamic felt more like a dating show than an actual idol group. And because of the controversy, Core Contents Media decided to split Coed School into 2 subunits. The girls became 5dolls and the boys became Speed, spelled with all caps. And CCM would seemingly want people to forget about Coed School completely, because after the subunits were created and the guys and the girls were split, they would basically never interact publicly again. So it was very clear that CCM wanted people to completely forget about Coed School. 5dolls was just 5dolls and Speed was just Speed. 5dolls debuted in 2011 with their single Lip Stains, and the song featured Jay Park, which I feel like is an omen of what's to come. But the group faced criticism almost immediately for lip syncing during live performances. Despite that, 5dolls managed to release other singles such as I Mean You and Time to Play, and they built a very solid fan base. But the cracks within the group slowly began to show. Sumi, the leader, left almost immediately after debut, and she later revealed that CCM had cut her out of schedules without explanation, and that she often found out about group decisions secondhand and wasn't even a part of these group decisions. Following Sumi's departure, Five Dolls went through multiple lineup changes. Hyo-young, a former Coed School member, joined the group, and new trainees were swapped in and out so quickly that fans couldn't even remember their names. There was no consistency. And when something like that happens, fans tend to have a hard time committing to a group because things just keep on changing. People struggle to pick a bias, and people struggle to feel like they can rely on the group for consistency. And when vocals and dances are often changing due to the changing members, it definitely makes for a very rocky fan base, which is the first problem that emerged for Five Dolls. Well, not the first, but among many others. Meanwhile, the boys of Speed were barely surviving. They were worse off than Five Dolls was. CCM delayed their debut multiple times, and they constantly recycled old or unreleased Coed School songs and choreography. And while Five Dolls was getting collaborations with people like J Park, which isn't saying much, and music videos and press coverage, Speed was left on the sidelines. And fans caught on quickly. They began accusing CCM of favoritism, but the criticism couldn't save Speed. Their debut hype was fading fast. Around the time that Speed and Five Dolls debut, the second generation of K-pop was transitioning into the third generation, and Speed and Five Dolls were already at risk of getting left behind. But the fact that their own label was mismanaging them, and in Speed's case, was just constantly delaying their debut, this was becoming a big problem. The fan base that moved from Coed School to Five Dolls and Speed were getting over it. New groups were emerging with a different sound, and they were more interested in them. But the fans that remained began to accuse Five Dolls of getting special treatment, and Five Dolls fans argued that Speed's delays were making their group look bad. And behind the scenes, things were even worse. Both groups shared the same manager, the same practice space, and were often competing for attention and songs. And later on, members would reveal that they would rehearse for a comeback, only to be told that their track had been given to the other group. As if things couldn't get any worse, CCM was hit by the infamous T-ara bullying scandal, which involved Hwa-young, the twin sister of Five Dolls, Hyo-young. And CCM's public image collapsed after that. Every group under the label, including Five Dolls and Speed, came under suspicion of bullying. The company's reputation was ruined, and both subgroups suffered for it. And I am going to add that Five Dolls suffered a little bit more just because Hyo-young was the sister of Hwa-young, who was heavily involved in the bullying scandal. Five Dolls and Speed would manage to survive. In 2013, Five Dolls released their last comeback, and then after that, there was absolutely nothing. CCM never released an official statement, there was never a goodbye post, and there was never an explanation. Five Dolls silently disbanded. Now, Speed managed to last a little longer. They released songs like Don't Tease Me and What You, but by 2016, they also quietly disbanded. There was no official statement, no goodbye, no explanation. Now, the biggest question is, where are the members now? Most of the members signed with other labels, but they struggled to take off. Sumi tried to re-debut in another girl group, but it didn't really work out, and she later spoke out about the mistreatment she experienced while she was signed under CCM. Hyo-young became an actress, but the bullying scandal would continue to follow her. Taewoon pursued solo music, and Sungmin, also known as Yu Sung, signed with Star Camp 202 to focus on acting. And admittedly, I don't know much about his acting career, but I'm not entirely sure if it took off. And most of the members either signed to other labels, but didn't take off, or they completely left the industry. And since then, none of the members have confirmed or denied ever dating each other. However, they've implied that friendships inside the group were closely monitored and that the label discouraged any close contact between male and female members after the group split. And Coed School could have actually become something revolutionary. Coed groups back then were very rare. There was a slight push at the time, but they were still uncommon. And currently, co-ed groups are practically non-existent besides like all-day project. But unfortunately, mismanagement and crazy shippers are pretty much responsible for the death of Coed School and its other groups, Five Dolls and Speed, because the shipping always followed them. But the bullying scandals are, I think, what ultimately destroyed both of the groups. Coed School didn't even last 5 years, but they left their mark on the second generation of K-pop. I also wanted to add that their music actually isn't that bad. I mean, it's somewhat catchy, it's not memorable, so you should actually definitely give it a listen. Now, that's all for now. I did want to apologize for me tripping over my words or stuttering. I did initially plan to use an AI voice for this video, but I ultimately decided against it because I just felt like that it would lack emotion, and I felt like for a video like this, emotion, I feel like it just makes it better and it makes it more interpersonal. Do consider subscribing because I do plan to post more long form content, and I actually really enjoyed researching this video, so feel free to stick around.